And get started out of respect for everyone's time. Thank you all for being here. My name is Ramel Terry, and I currently serve as the Vice President for the Community Commission for Public Safety and Accountability. We are joined this evening by our President, Anthony Driver, if you want to wave your hand. We also have another commissioner that is joining shortly, Commissioner Javier Minor. And I also do want to acknowledge our district counselors in the room. So if you are a district counselor, Mr. McGill, I see you, and Beth, I see you. And we also have our Okay, Ashley Vargas is here. Thank you all for being here. And then I also want to acknowledge Myra, who is a part of our Non-Citizens Advisory Council, if you just want to wave so people know that you are in the room. So thank you all for being here and welcome to our first community listening session on traffic stops. Before we get started, I would like to thank the JLM Center, Reverend Miller, he was just here a moment ago, for hosting tonight's event. I would also like to thank Alderman Jason Irvin, who is supporting tonight's event. There are also my fellow commissioners who I've already acknowledged, as well as our district counselors. So to give you all context about this evening's meeting, the Community Commission for Public Safety and Accountability is hosting a series of listening sessions on traffic stops across Chicago to gather community input. We're looking for community members to share their share their experiences with traffic stops and provide feedback on current policies and potential changes to the Chicago Police Department's practices. The commission, through its policy-making authority, is working collaboratively with the Chicago Police Department to develop a policy around traffic stops. While CPD currently has and is pursuing new policies that cover a wide range of police encounters as it regards to CPD traffic stops, are specifically governed by several policies that mainly focus on data collection. There are several things that CPD is doing, including the commitment from the superintendent around traffic stop reform, including traffic stop reforms related to their 2024 and 2025 goals with the CCPSA. CPD has also developed and received input on groups of policies called Police Encounters and Fourth Amendment that enforces constitutional protections for the public during various types of police encounters. This policy suite includes multiple policies, including police encounters, investigatory stops, and reporting mechanisms for investigatory stops. So since 2023, there has been discussion between the IMT, which is the Independent Monitoring Team, and the Office of Attorney General, engaged in community outreach and traffic stops. But for the commission, we want to further that work and allow you all to have an opportunity to engage with us throughout the city and give us information that we can use to inform the work that we're doing as a commission. So we look forward to sharing all the feedback that we hear from not only tonight's listening sessions, but all of our future listening sessions with this department as well as others. So during this process, the commission wants to ensure that the voices of community are at the forefront as we discuss the drafting of any new policy related to traffic stops. Our input should be centered in the community and its experiences. And so I want to turn it over very quickly to Commissioner Minor to give you insight on sort of the questions that we're posing and would like to hear, to just get your thoughts going. If you have other things you'd like to share, please feel free, but just to get your thoughts going around this issue.
Awesome. It's so amazing to be joined by you all this evening. Good evening. I am Commissioner Minor, and I know now is the time for us to kind of open up to make public comment for you all to make public comments. Some of the things that we're hoping to learn from you all tonight is, what are you or your family's experiences with traffic stops? Are there any public safety reasons for police to conduct traffic stops for non-moving violations? And what should be included in the police policy about traffic stops? In addition to giving public comment at one of these listening sessions, the commission also created a survey where you all can share your feedback. You can find the survey through the QR code on the handout that you're receiving tonight. So if you haven't received the handout, please connect with commission staff and they'll make sure to get you one. The survey will also be posted on the CCPSA website and on our social media. I hope you're already following us. Now I would love to call up the first three speakers. Anyone with a comment will have 2 minutes to speak. When I call your name, I just ask that you line up at this microphone here, okay? So the first three names, and please excuse me if I mess up your name, is Alexandra Block, W. Robert Schultz, okay, the third, W. Robert Schultz the third, and Myra Lane. Thank you.
Start talking. See. Jasmine.
Test. Okay. Thank you so much, Commissioners, President Driver. My name is Alexandra Block. I'm the Director of the Criminal Legal System and Policing Project at the ACLU of Illinois. Can you hear me now? Okay. I've spoken to the commission before, but I'm here again because, as you know, I represent the plaintiffs in the Wilkins versus City of Chicago lawsuit, which is a proposed class action challenging CPD's discriminatory mass traffic stop program that's been in place since 2016. We appreciate you holding this listening session tonight. I'm here on behalf of our clients in this case. It's crucial that CCPSA continue this process and keep open avenues for public input and feedback as it considers a policy and considers whether to have a role in governing traffic stops under the CPD consent decree. Based on long experience, we can confidently say that as it works now, the consent decree process does not adequately respond to community input. This is what happens instead. First, CPD drafts its own policy. Then the Office of the Attorney General and the Independent Monitoring Team review it and sign off. And often they don't even insist on correcting clear constitutional and legal errors or violations of the consent decree's language itself. Third, after the monitor and the AG have already signed off, then CPD posts the policy for public comment for 15 days and the community can send in written feedback. But fourth, CPD finalizes the policy regardless of the feedback that it receives. It doesn't explain why it did or didn't take that input, and mostly it doesn't accept any recommendations that it gets from the community. So we are hoping that this process is going to look significantly different. If traffic stop policies are left to this consent decree process that I just described, I predict that it will not result in any meaningful changes because CPD will really get to do the first draft of the policy and it won't have to respond to any community recommendations. And this will not result in community members feeling heard or respected. So whatever formal role CCPSA decides to take on, we ask that CCPSA continue to bring the voice of the community to the negotiating table and to proceed in a transparent and democratic way. And when making this policy, we specifically urge CCPSA to do the following. First, define and prohibit pretextual traffic stops, which are stops that are made for minor violations when the officer's real reason is to investigate unrelated crimes without suspicion. Second, prohibit traffic stops for minor vehicle equipment and registration issues. And in answer to the question that Commissioner Minor asked, there is no public safety justification for stopping drivers for equipment and registration issues. We have demonstrated this in our lawsuit. These types of stops do not decrease crime. They don't result in streets being safer. This is demonstrated through statistical evidence. And so there is no public safety or roadway safety justification for these types of stops for minor violations. Third, we urge the CCPSA and CPD to prohibit quotas for traffic stops, meaning requiring police officers to make a certain number of stops within a shift or within a month, something like that, which is a policy we know they currently pursue and increases the number of stops. Fourth, get rid of tactical teams. and other CPD units that primarily make traffic stops. These are very dangerous encounters that are much more likely to lead to harm, physical harm, and even death of motorists. 5, prohibit CPD from flooding Black and brown neighborhoods in Chicago with traffic stops as a supposed crime fighting strategy. This is known as, sometimes it's called a hotspot policing. What it really does is discriminate against people who live in Black and brown neighborhoods. And 6, the last request that we have is to prohibit so-called consent searches during traffic stops. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. So unlike our traditional public comments in this listening session, I do have capacity to provide some follow-up. It won't be follow-up in all cases, so I just want to level set expectations. But related to your inquiry about the involvement of the commission when it comes to the consent decree, we are having active discussions, right, with the department, with the OAG, who have both agreed that if in fact there is placement of traffic stops into this consent decree, that we are actively involved in the policy development process as we would be without it being in the consent decree. So I do want to assure you that as a commission, we've advocated for that, and all parties at the table are in support of our engagement being and having that oversight continued as it relates to policies. And in all of our work that we've demonstrated, we will continue to ensure that we're engaging community and giving you all, you know, of course, more than 15 days to weigh in and be informed and give us feedback as we're crafting the policy. So I just wanted to share that.
Good afternoon or good evening. My name is W. Robert Schultz III. I've lived in Chicago for almost 35 years, and I'm currently a resident of Belmont-Cragen. I wanted to say two quick things before I get into the comments I wrote. One is, it's good we're having this community meeting, but we see a lot of empty chairs. I've done community engagement for most of my career. So if you ever need some TA about how to fill these seats, I'm available. Secondly, I work in the area of transportation justice, and we're working on two things. It says here, traffic stops can reduce traffic accidents. We're working on changing the nomenclature to crashes. Accidents seem to suggest something just happens out of the blue, and our streets are designed for speed, and they're not designed for safety. And one of the things we're leaning into is advocating for infrastructure to control traffic. So I encourage you to change accidents to crash. I'm the campaign organizer at the Active Transportation Alliance. We promote walking, biking, and public transportation for sustainability, health, and equitable communities. And we were one of the 3 organizations that came together to form the Free to Move Coalition to address the issue of pretextual traffic stops. We did this work because we saw, based on data and coming to the realization that there is inequitable law enforcement for Black and brown people when walking, biking, and driving. And the data analyzed by Impact for Equity shows that our advocacy to end pretextual traffic stops is important because, contrary to the popular belief that traffic stops, pretextual traffic stops are effective crime prevention, they're not, and it's equally ineffective with regard to traffic safety. 20 years ago, when I was on staff at Amnesty International, we called for pretextual traffic stops based on our research regarding this practice. We actually held 2 community meetings in Chicago about this issue. That was 20 years ago, and we're still debating the efficacy of pretextual traffic stops. Therefore, I want to say that we stand unequivocally with our partners in the Free to Move Coalition for 3 principles for your consideration as you move forward and craft policy. 1, end pretextual traffic stops outright. 2, end stops made for minor traffic violations, such as broken headlights. And 3, end suspicionless consent searches. Tonight, I urge the CCPSA to adopt the strongest policy to end pretextual traffic stops. Thank you.
Awesome. And Mr. Schultz, I just want to say that I'm a part of the Community Engagement Working Group. I know that our communication staffer, Nikki, has done a lot to try to fill these rooms. But as you know, we have a small team of folk. We have been trying to be as innovative as possible to fill these seats, but we would love the help of you as a community organizer and all of your various organizations. So if you want to help us with turnout, please feel free to come to me at the end of this meeting. I would love to talk strategy with you. So thank you for offering your assistance in that way.
I think I'm next. Yes. Hi, my name is Mara. I'm a longtime advocate, but I rarely give public comment because I'm usually here to support. So I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak. I don't take it for granted as a white woman speaking here tonight or the privilege that comes with it. I know I don't face the same frequency or impact of traffic stops as Black and Brown communities, and I appreciate being heard in this space. My intention is to share my own experience in hopes that it adds to this broader conversation about improving these interactions for everyone. I was pulled over for expired license plates. I had no idea they were expired, so when CPD's bright lights came flashing, I was clueless, but also immediately struggling. I have 2 non-apparent disabilities, and both are greatly affected by bright flashing lights and abrupt sounds. As the cops approached, I asked if they could please turn off their lights, explaining that I have epilepsy. One of the officers laughed, maybe he thought I was lying, and his response was dismissive, condescending, and rude. Exactly what I expected, unfortunately. That didn't feel like serving and protecting anyone, but it usually doesn't. I asked again, covering my eyes as I pleaded, and still they refused. I have a letter from my neurologist in my glove compartment for situations just like this, so I took it out to show them, and it made no difference. I understand CPD needs their lights on for safety reasons, but once I was already pulled over, turning them off wouldn't have created risk. But keeping them on was a risk for me, at least. It might seem like a small thing to someone else, but for me, it was the difference between getting home safely or possibly having a seizure over a frickin' expired license plate. This interaction wasn't just dismissive, it felt unnecessary. Listening to someone's health concern and making a small adjustment could have avoided everything. Traffic stops aren't just about the reason for the stop. They're about how we treat people in the moment. Imagine if there were policies or even basic empathy in place to make these interactions safer and less harmful. Oh, and in the end, did I get a ticket? Nope, I didn't. I'm white and we were on the north side. Thanks.
Our next 3 speakers are Tree, Palmeras, and Chloe Vital. 2, not 3.
Hi, I'm Tree Palmeras. I'm with Black Lives Matter Chicago. It's obvious that people are terrified. Dexter Reed would have been much safer on the road without his seatbelt than he was facing CPD. The Department of Justice has been slowly investigating Chicago for being the worst gang in Chicago and also the most well-funded. As a member of Black Lives Matter Chicago, I was invited to a vigil in Nollywood, in the heart of where the police live up north. A vigil, a multiracial, predominantly white vigil for Laquan McDonald. And the police stood, clogged up traffic, had their kids out blowing their horns, had threatening weapons. I called the police on the police 15 times, recorded it. We have to just wake up, Chicago, and decide we are not going to fund this anymore. People come to me all the time, terrified because the police not only have brutalized or taken their everything off this earth, they are torturing them. They kill their dogs. They harass their children. They harass them. They dox me. we got to remember that about 30,000 of our future, our baby Chicago in 2020 took to the streets saying, we are tired of paying to be beaten. We are tired of paying to be murdered. And those children got beat. I don't know how much evidence you need from the community at 2 minutes at a time, you know? So we need to say we need to immediately defang them. They need to get rid of all their tanks and toys. We need to defund them. The end.
Duly noted. Thank you. Chloe Vital.
Hello. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I think that's fine. Thank you. Hi, I'm Chloe Vitale. I'm one of the district council members for the 12th Police District. And you hear really two arguments in favor of continuing the practice of these pretextual traffic stops. The first is that, they're finding weapons, they're getting weapons off the street. So the pretext is working. The second is that this isn't pretextual at all. These are not there's no pretext, and that these are just routine traffic stops to, that are stand on their own, validity, because we need to enforce traffic violations. So they're not both true, right? So in the case of the former, where the argument is that, they're finding weapons, there's a problem because, they're not finding weapons by and large, relative to the sheer volume of these stops that are happening, and motorists are being subjected to these stop and frisk style encounters. So, and then if these are not pretextual and we're deploying police officers to enforce nonviolent minor traffic violations, in this way, it's a gross misappropriation of allegedly strained resources when community members are coming, to our meetings complaining that they're, calling 911 for service, from the police. For example, in the case of someone brandishing a weapon in a place of business, and the police are not available to come, and they're not, or they come hours later, after whatever happens has already happened. So all of this is to say that however you spend this, the practice is inappropriate, and should stop. Thank you.
So the other person that we had listed for public comment is no longer speaking. Is there anyone who hasn't shared? Okay, so the next person we will call up is Mrs. Phyllis Logan.
Thank you. I'm not a representing, but I am a board member for the racial profiling prevention and data collection for the state. And I wanted to be able to hear from everyone else where the concerns are. I am also on the subcommittee board for data collection. We get to speak to members of ICEJA, the Illinois State Police Association, as well as IDOT. We've had studies done over the past 4 years, 2022 and 2023. We're working on 2024 and 2025, but I've also read 2021, 20, and 2021, those studies. And the same concerns that you guys have here, me being a board member for the state. we have the same concerns. So we're collecting data and we get to hear the data reports from not only just Chicago, but every police officer, every district, every jurisdiction. They are liable for reporting to us. And our biggest concern has always been when we don't get the reports, who's policing them? And this is an ordinance for the state, believe it or not. This data has to be collected in order for us to come up with the consensus of and comparing what other states are doing. We've had reports from California, I think the 2C Cincinnati, not Cincinnati, Connecticut, and a few other states that we read their reports to see how we can change how the policing is done in the state of Illinois. So the concerns with the racial profiling piece, whether you're walking or driving, I just added in my notes biking, because we did not consider biking. So I'll add that to our board when I return. But we're working on it. And anything that I could do to assist the CCPSA, I'm willing to provide what knowledge we have. But we do have open meetings every quarter of the month. That's public knowledge for people to attend. Those public meetings to get to hear what we're reporting on and the information that we're receiving throughout all of the jurisdictions in the state of Illinois. So that's what I wanted to say.
Thank you. Do you have like a meeting cadence that you can share or
share
information
that.
about the website where people who may want to participate in those meetings
I can share that, yes.
Okay,
We-
you can
if-
share right now?
I'll share with you.
Oh, well, I don't know how to get it out to the people.
Oh, okay. I
Yeah.
thought- Okay, you guys don't have access. I can't put it out either, but, and I don't want to give out my information, but I will share that with you.
Okay.
And then, once I get approval from our board, I can,
Yeah, can you give us the board again? Because then maybe people
Yeah.
can research the website for the board
No
to
problem.
find the information. Can you just say it one
Yeah.
more time? Thanks.
so it's the board is the Racial Profiling Prevention and Data Oversight Board that I'm on, but it's racial profiling for pedestrians and drivers. We don't have biking on there, but I want to add biking and to include that population as well. Okay. So, okay, thank you.
So I do want to open the floor. Are there any other comments that anyone would like to make as we do have a bit more time? I want to thank all of those who have come before us already to sort of speak about this topic. All of our meetings are being recorded, so we will have transcripts from these conversations as we will with all of our future meetings. I definitely would encourage you all to not just come yourself, but to bring others with you, especially if you are not the directly impacted individual, but you know impacted individuals from these communities where there is a significant amount of traffic stops. It would be really great for us to hear from them. So I strongly encourage you all to continue your engagement. I also thought I saw the alderman, but I don't know if he came in, so I wanted to recognize him and see if he wanted to address the community. Okay. But Alderman Irving was here. He was out in the hall. So Beth, you want to come and give us comments? Thanks.
So Beth Rochford, 17th District Counselor. I'll just add two quick things. Not too long ago, I was pulled over for an expired plate sticker. They said because it was 2 weeks, it was in August. It expired in August and it was September. So they didn't give me a ticket, but they did pull me over in a relatively busy intersection of North and Kedzie. There was only room for me to pull over, so their squad car was in the middle of the street, blocking traffic. Again, I think that it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to pull somebody over for something like that, block traffic, and then not give them a ticket. They should have given me a ticket because I was in violation. I mean, I was happy that they told me, but there are other ways that, as we heard at the hearing, that you had several months back, other places are sending letters to people so that they can get things fixed. And then I would just also add, I have a couple of my CVI workers that I work with in the 17th district are here today. And when we were getting petitions signed to have the hearing that you guys had several months back, I went to some of their events and we had no trouble getting people to sign that petition. We ran out of pages. I only brought 2 and we filled up those 20 slots on each of those pages really quickly because anybody that we talked to at the event said, of course, pretextual traffic stops should be stopped. It doesn't serve a value and it put people at risk. So they're my evidence that that there were clearly people in the community who felt that this was an issue and were happy to sign the petition. So thank you.
Yes, okay. So when you approach the mic, please give your first and last name and then proceed with your comments.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Corey Dooley Johnson. Yeah, so I was recently stopped. I think this was on November 7th. I was stopped, but I didn't report it. And so we recently hosted an event with the NAACP. It was called Fireside Friendsgiving, where we came together and we talked about a plethora of different events, one of them being public safety. I remember being out with my friend that night, Jay Simon, and we were literally planning on how we were going to do this event for the community. And we were talking about how the relationships between public safety and the community needs to be bridged together. And so I'm taking him home. It's around 9 o'clock, maybe. I exit, I'm leaving Independence, and I'm just, taking my routine route. And I get pulled over by an officer. And before I was pulled over, I noticed that they didn't have any headlights on. And so I was kind of like, okay, that was a little iffy. I made sure, definitely since the police were behind me, use turn signals, drive slow, things that I was already doing. And they followed me for a little bit, and then they ended up putting on the lights. They followed me for maybe a few blocks. They put on the lights, and they pulled me over. I was very cooperative, asked the officer, good evening. What's the reason for you pulling me over? And it was really kind of vague. It was like, oh, you didn't use a turn signal whenever you turned. But I know that I did because I saw them before they even got behind me. So I was making sure to be very cautious. The officer asked if I had anything in the vehicle, any weapons. I didn't have any weapons in the vehicle. And just a lot of questions they started to ask. And then they asked me if I could get out of the vehicle. And I was asked, why should I get out of the vehicle? They didn't give me a reason, but I complied. I knew that I didn't have anything on me. And so I stepped out of the vehicle, and there was a lot of questions, leading questions, like, where are you coming from? What are you doing? Where are you going? Are you sure you don't have anything? And so once I stepped out the vehicle, me and my friend Jay were told to stand towards the back. And then he searched my car. I asked him why he was searching my car, if there was something that he was looking for. He didn't answer, just continued to search, pulled everything out of my middle console. And so he's searching my car, he's searching the back, and then he gets to my trunk. And this process maybe took about 20 minutes. And I keep a yard sign in there. I'm a former candidate for 29th Ward Alderman from when I ran my campaign. And he saw the sign and he was like, what's this? And I was like, well, I was a former candidate for Alderman in the 29th Ward. And his whole demeanor changed. And there was 3 officers that pulled us over. And after the 20 minutes, I didn't say anything because I didn't want to be the person, I know I've seen it all too common on social media. You're trying to do something and it goes the wrong way. So I was trying to be as compliant as possible. And his whole demeanor changed. And it was just kind of like, oh, well, he started trying to give me tips on driving and what I could do to be a better driver, even though I didn't do anything. And it's unfortunate because I do know, I'm very active in the community. I do know a lot of law enforcement, but I didn't report it because I just felt like, I don't know, maybe part of me felt like nothing would be done. Or maybe it was just like, well, this is just something that happens every day. So this is just being a Black man while driving, right? And so I don't know. I still haven't reported it, but I thought that it was important to come up here and talk about it. Maybe it's something that I should report. I didn't get the officer's name or his badge number, any of the officers, but that was an incident that happened to me. I was lucky enough to not get a ticket or anything like that. Like I said, they didn't find anything, but that was my experience.
So I do still want to open it up for any additional comments or any potential questions. If we do have answers, we're more than willing to, provide you all with additional insight. But again, before closing out, I do want to make sure that all minds and hearts are clear. And thanking you all for coming into this space and just giving you an opportunity, because we're here to listen, we're here to learn. And we want to make sure that whatever it is that we're doing in regards to this work, in regards to a traffic stop policy, that we are going into it fully knowledgeable of all ends, all impacts, and thinking through the policy, not just in crafting it, but how the impact of its implementation, because that's a very important piece. We often have ideas about what a great policy looks like, what it should have, what it shouldn't have, but when it becomes implemented, we see that's really where sometimes we miss the mark. And so, again, I just want to, make you all aware that as part of this, we want to make sure not only from crafting, but all the way through implementation, we have the best understanding. So does anyone else? Okay. So with that being said, I really do want to thank you all for coming out this evening. We truly do value. Hello? Okay. We truly do value your feedback, your commitment to staying engaged with us. And if you would like to have further information on the CPD's draft policies with the Office of Attorney General, you can visit their website at www.chicagopolice.org/policy-review. We also want to thank again the JLM Center for allowing us to be here, as well as Alderman Irving for hosting. We will be implementing a survey. And so again, I encourage you all, for those who could not be here, follow our social media sites at CCPSA Chicago. We are on YouTube, we are on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, all of the places, and share the videos. Encourage people to reach out if they are not able to participate in person. Please encourage them to attend virtually, as there are virtual options, because we stream all of our meetings. And before I fully close it out, I do want to give Commissioner Minor an opportunity to share any final thoughts, if she has any.
Well, thank you all for being here with us tonight. Your comments and experience and recommendation is invaluable to the policymaking process. Even I know that we have a staffer, Thara, who's recording and taking notes that's going to be brought back to the full commission, and this will definitely inform our negotiations and our policy making process as well. I also took my own notes as well, so I really want to just thank everyone for their transparency and vulnerability. For those of you all who shared your personal experiences, please can encourage your family, your friends, various community members, anyone else that you feel has an impact in traffic stops in our future listening sessions. This event doesn't begin and end here, but this is just one part of the policymaking process. So I just want to encourage, I feel very encouraged at the participation that we saw today, and I look forward to having future engagements with you all as well as we get closer to a policy that we all can agree on.
Good evening. My name is Jimmy Gaither. I work for Lawndale Christian Legal Center. I just want to make a bookmark. A couple of days ago, there's been on the news about they're lowering the speed limit in the city from 30 to 25. And they also, I heard, I'm not 100%, I know they say if you get pulled over, the officers they can search your car if they smell fresh marijuana, but they can't if it's burnt marijuana. So I want to make a bookmark with the data. What's going to be the outcome, or how many traffic stops, how many arrests after that, since they're changing things. And the young lady with ACLU stated that they make their own policies. So do we have the opportunity to go against their policies and things like that? Because it seems like everything is pretty much geared for the Black and brown community. You're already doing 30. It's a school zone, so they're gonna slow down. Even if I'm doing 30 and I forget it's 25, I get pulled over. So now that gives them the right to search my car, check my registration. They're gonna give me a ticket for something. I'm not gonna be fortunate enough not to get a ticket like some people stated. So I just want to make a bookmark so we can start paying attention to, after they make this policy a law, how things turn after that. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Jimmy. Really quickly related to that particular policy, that's not a CPD policy. That any changes to speed limits and things of that nature have to be done by ordinance. So those are conversations that you want to have with your alderman as well as the mayor's office related to them pushing an ordinance related to the change in speed limit. So, and I do know that there were advocates around that sort of change. But again, with that policy, to your point, that's what I mean about when we push for certain things, we also have to think about what are the implications of its impact. So I do agree there needs to be a bookmark for us to see what are the impacts of implementing this policy of changing the speed limit from 30 to 25. And it may be, you know, a good time, not a good time, but a good conversation if there are advocates for you to understand why they were pushing for that, and then for you to also communicate your concerns on the impact of the implementation of that policy. So I just wanted to provide that context.
Yeah, I'm
Mr. Schultz.
W. Robert Schultz III with Active Transportation Alliance, and I just wanted to clear up a couple ideas that are misinformation, miscommunication, whatever. Yes, there is a conversation to lower the speed limit from 30 to 25 universally. However, right now it's a conversation. There's an ordinance that's been proposed. It hasn't been voted on by the city council. And even if they approve it, the language of the ordinance is set up so it doesn't take effect for a whole year. And concurrent with that are conversations about how to make fines more equitable on top of the policies that already exist with regard to equitable fines. So there's conversations about this, but nothing has been enacted yet. And even if it does pass, it won't take effect for a year. And like I said in my opening comments, one of the things that needs to be done, but you can't do it unless you lower the speed limits, is redesign the streets. Like Cicero, Fullerton Avenue, where I live, has 8 lanes when I cross from McDonald's to Walgreens, Manheim Road, lots of roads out here, Roosevelt, that have many lanes. So we need to have a fulsome discussion about how to redesign our streets and how to deal with our speed limits. And we're behind the cities of Portland, Boston, New York, Seattle, Evanston, that have all lowered their speed limits.
Thank you. So Jimmy, to that point, talk with Mr. Schultz so you can learn more about the work that they're doing in advocating and pushing for that.
Hello, Janicia Williams. I was coming with a question in regards to reporting these kind of traffic incidents that seem to be racially motivated or biased. And listening to Ms. Logan talk about how they're going very underreported, what is kind of an independent, or is there talks about an independent reporting process for civilians who may not feel comfortable walking into a police station and reporting somebody's fellow officer in a sea of people that don't look like them. So I don't know if that's any kind of policy or initiative that you all are working on.
So the Civilian Office for Police Accountability exists to take those sorts of complaints. They take all complaints that are rooted around police misconduct, whether it's something is being pulled over and feeling like you weren't supposed to be pulled over, to a police involved shooting. So that already exists, that
Okay.
infrastructure exists for
With you
people
all?
no, it's its own entity, but as a commission, we do have oversight over the chief administrator, which is the head of that department. So if that is information that you need, we can definitely provide you all with information for the hotline on where you can make those reports to COPA. And, you know,
Okay.
it can be as much information or as little information, and they will take that complaint.
Okay, and then do you know what happens once those complaints are given, or kind of like what would make people feel like they have been, really heard, or that it's, effective?
So their process is to investigate that complaint. So they would do an investigation. COPA is an independent entity who are not officers. They are not allowed to be sworn officers. If they have been officers, they have to be separated from the department for a significant amount of years. They have their own internal investigators. So they do their own independent investigation, meeting with whomever the complaint is, meeting with whomever else may be witnesses. So they're doing an investigation of whatever the complaint, and then they determine their findings.
Okay, thank you.
I also wanted to speak to your question as well. So in addition to filing a complaint with COPA, sometimes when you file those complaints, it's not egregious misconduct, but perhaps you had an instance or an interaction with the officer that was tense, or you felt like you wasn't presented with the respect that you deserved, right? And those are not necessarily, it depends on the level of the engagement and the interaction, determining what COPA will use to kind of escalate that specific case. But with that being said, they also provide mediation services as well, where the person, if you wanted to opt in, you can have a conversation with that officer on what your interaction or your experience was like. And then you kind of, they would then facilitate that like peace circle, so to speak, so that you can kind of get to a closer conclusion, and they can also use that as a learning experience. So that's one option that's also available to community members. They just finished a pilot for their mediation program. The second thing that I want to say is that the state is also has an initiative where you can file complaints of misconduct anonymously. And so similar to, I know that some folks might not want to always be face to face with the police officer and talk about any harm that they felt like they experienced. So that's also a channel that you can follow. If you want, I can follow up with you and tell you the specific name of that service, because this was actually a new learning that I experienced this weekend. And I also want to talk a little bit about some of our internal advocacy, because I know that in the commission, there are other folks that share your concerns about, what if you're pulled over and you're not necessarily given a receipt, right? But that was a major inconvenience and you were not in any kind of violation. Like, what does that chain of command look like? So I know that there has been a lot of advocacy from our president specifically, and a few other commissioners as well, in terms of what that can look like in the future. And I look forward to seeing what that language could look like in our 2025 goals. So just stay tuned to those goals. They're not publicly available just yet because we're still in the process of negotiation. But once it is released to the public, I hope that concern can also be captured in the language as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So again, as we close, I want to thank you all again, and we look forward to continuing this conversation and look forward from hearing from the community. Feel free to reach out to anyone on the commission, and especially those of us who are sitting here. I know many people already reach out to the president, but feel free to reach out to myself, Commissioner Minor, Commissioner Gottlieb, Commissioner Wortham, and Commissioner Ruby Navarrijo. We are all available and look forward to working with you all, continuing these conversations, and, invite us out as well to have conversations with your constituents. If you know that they may not be able to make a meeting such as this, feel free to reach out. I'm speaking specifically for myself. I don't want to commit anyone else's time, but I'm definitely willing to come out with small groups or meeting at a library or something to just hear and have conversation and build relationship, and also provide education as well. Because I thought, Nisi, thank you for that question. I think it's really important. There's a lot of questions about what oversight looks like in Chicago. There's a lot of different entities. You know, it's really like this, I like to call it an octopus of sorts, right? Because tentacles go in different directions. And so it's really important for us to be informed and educated so we can make sure that we're going to the right places for the things that we are looking to resolve. And so on behalf of the commission, we wish you and your family a happy holiday. Again, follow us on all of our social media platforms, and thank you all again, and have a great evening.